Okay, now we're getting on with the equation part of it, right? So when we see an equation, we have y equals to x plus 2. In maths, we call that an equation, and we need to know the different parts of an equation, right? So if you look at the first part, we have y, which is called a variable, right, equals to x plus 2. And x is also called a variable. And why do we call it a variable? Because it can change. So it means we can put in a 1 for x, we can put in a 2 for x, we can put in a 3 for x, according to what the question is telling us. So it can change all the time, so it's called variable. Vary means to change, right? So a y can also change all the time. If x is 1, then y is going to become 1 plus 2. It becomes 3. If x is 2, it becomes y is equals to 2 plus 2, so it becomes 4. So y can also change, so it's also called a variable. Then we have the number part of an equation, which is called constant because it remains the same. So you need to learn the terms constant and variable, and when you see a maths equation, you must be able to say that y is a variable, x is a variable, and 2 is a number, so it's constant, it can't change. So let's look at the first part here, where I'm saying y is equals to x plus 2. So I'm at this example here, which is y is equals to x plus 2, and we're going to put that into a table and see what values do we get for y when we are changing x all the time, right? So when x is 1, the first one is when x is 1, we're going to say y is equals to x plus 2. That's given to me, that's my equation. Then I'm going to put 1 in there, so I'm going to say I'm going to substitute my 1 for my x. So y is equals to 1 plus 2. 1 plus 2 gives me 3. So that means when I'm making x1, my y value becomes 3, right? So that's why they've got, if you got 1 and your equation is this part here, your answer for y is going to become 3. So now I've just jumped to do number 3. So if x is 3, y is equals to x plus 2. So what do? I put a 3 for my x. I'm substituting that value plus 2, and my answer is 5, right? And then I've moved to number 23, where x is 23. So y is equals to x plus 2 again. I've put my 23 in for my x. 23 plus 2 is equals to 25. So if I look at my x values, when x is 3, then y is going to become 5. And when x is 23, y is going to become 25. So this is telling you that these are your input values, right? And then this becomes your process or your rule, and then this part becomes your output value. So what you're doing is the same thing like a flow diagram where you have numbers going in, you're doing something to it, and the numbers are coming out. So here's the number going in, which is the x values. We're doing that to the x value, and then we're getting this out. This becomes the output value. So if I'm writing it here for the x, 1 would be my input value, right? And my rule will become y is equals to x plus 2, and then I've made it 1 plus 2, it's equals to, my output value will become 3. So I've taken my input value, I've substituted it into my equation, and I got my output value. So it's the same thing, it's only written in a table. So let's go do the second one now. Example, it says if y is equals to 3x. Now there's another thing you need to learn about equation. So this is a different equation now. It's saying y is equals to 3x. So all my equation is saying y is equals to 3x. That's my equation, right? It's a number sentence. So y is my variable, x is my variable because it can change. 3 is now not my constant. Constant is a number on its own. 3 is next to the x, which means I'm actually multiplying that 3 there by that x, right? I call 3 my coefficient. The number next to the variable is called the coefficient. So if I have 5x, 5 is called my coefficient. If I have 4x, 4 is called my coefficient. If I have negative 2x, then negative 2 is called my coefficient. So you need to learn the word variable, what is a constant and what is a coefficient. So let's do the second example there where we have a table now. So we've got our formula there, y is equals to 3x, right? Remember, these are my input values. So I'm going to say when x is 1, what happens? Y is equals to 3x. So I'm substituting, I'm saying 3 times, there's a silent times there, 3 times 1. I've made x 1, which is equals to 3. So when x is 1, then y is 3. When x is 1, then my output value for 1 becomes, y becomes 3. So I'm just jumping here again. So if 3x is equals to 3, my formula is y is equals to 3x. I'm saying equals to 3. There's a small times there, 3 times 3, and my answer is 9. So number 2 is telling me when x is 3, then my y value needs to be 9. So when x is 3, my y value is 9. Then I took 30. Okay, so if you test the middle ones on your own, you'll see you get the right answer there. If x is 30, y is equals to 3x. So I'm saying 3 times x here. So 3 times the 30, my answer becomes 90. Okay, so when x is 30, then I'm getting y to be 90. So that's how I get my input and my output values, right? And then what you need to do today is complete exercise 8.6. There's 2 more questions on the other side there. So there's 6 questions. Here you have a formula. There's your x values, and then you must calculate your y. So this one, you can see this is a variable, and a constant, right? If you say y is equals to x minus 17, a variable, and minus 17 is my constant. Here I've got y equals to 8x. So I've got a coefficient 8 and a variable x and a y variable. Y is equals to quarter x. So y is equals to, the quarter is my coefficient, and x and y are my variables. So what you do is, for each one, you're using that as your process, which is the middle part here of your diagram, right? Then you're putting your input value for 1 and you get an answer for y. Then you're putting that 2, then you're putting 3, and you're getting all your answers for those ones there.